All right. Uh, Welcome all my classes. Usually I just do this for the online students, but hey, everybody seems to be needing this for some particular reason. Um, so we're going to get started on chapter uh, chapter 2. We just jumped out of chapter 6, and we learned to learn. Hopefully everybody's got their test taken and all that stuff. So chapter 2 is called Psychology Methods, and methods are how you go about psychology. But when we're talking about methods, we're talking about how to conduct experiments, all kinds of ways that, and not just experiments, but all kinds of ways that psychologists get information so that they can put it into practice. And a lot of this is more of some of the experimental stuff that goes on. The first section, which we're going to talk about today, is research and how psychologists go about doing research. This is important for psychology, but it's actually important for other things in life. We've got, I don't know if you knew this or not, but there is this pandemic going on. Yes, it started a little while ago, and I don't know if it's affected your life. Maybe it's cut back on the amount of days that you actually attend a school, or lack of getting to attend a school. But anyway, right now they are working on a vaccine. And they're going through all this research and everything, trying to figure out a vaccine. And they got to do a lot of tests and stuff like that. And they got to do research and find out what vaccine will work. Now, that's more of science and biology, but it's very similar to psychology and how psychologists conduct research. They're probably going to be doing research on how this pandemic affects people psychologically. So our learning objectives, basically what we're going to learn. Oh boy, this is some easy stuff. The 5 basic steps, it's got the word basic in there, so this should be easy. The 5 basic steps in scientific research, which is the same that you've been learning since like 5th grade. You just got to apply it to psychology. And then we have a couple of extra steps that are involved in scientific research. And I want you guys, those 2 extra steps are probably more important than anything. So first of all, conducting research. Psychology is an experimental science. Assumptions in science must be supported by evidence. We can't just say, I love how people are like, hey, coronavirus is going to be done by the election. No, it's not. Man, when it gets cold, when winter gets here, we're not going to have coronavirus. Or when it's hot, we're not going to have coronavirus. I think people are depressed because of this, or I think that the color blue causes me to do that. Yeah, that could be true, but it's just an assumption, and we have to support things by evidence. And so we use the 5 steps in research. So here's the 5 steps in research, and these are steps in my house, my old house. The problem, and this is why we moved, those steps only go up. They don't go down. So it really kind of stunk when you got upstairs. So you never get downstairs because those stairs only go up. I'm sorry, I'm sarcastic sometimes. First step 1, forming a question. Why something happens. You're like, why did this happen? What will happen if type of things. You look for evidence, maybe an experiment, or look into some type of case study or something. I'm going to move myself. Woo, I'm moving all over. But anyway, you look into whatever it is that you can find to make up a question. Now, then one of the things that isn't mentioned in here is you have to do something called a review of literature. And what a review of literature is, and this is where you look for evidence. You look into an experiment, case study, you look into a lot of it, like 30 to 50 of them. You will read all about different experiments that are somewhat on the question or the topic that you're looking at. Maybe you're dealing with memory. You're going to do an experiment on memory, and you need to find 30 to 50 experiments that were done based on memory, and they write what's called an academic journal, and this is a 12 to 20 to 50 to 80 page thing, and you're trying to find out what the world already knows about memory, about depression, about coronavirus, whatever. You're going to try to have to, and now they're probably not doing this aspect in the coronavirus vaccine research. But this is a very daunting task. I've had to do it before. It's boring, it's awful, but you have to do it. Basically, the thing is when you're conducting an experiment, when psychologists are conducting experiment, they think they're going to tell the world something that they don't know. And if they do that, they're big time. Like, hey, I'm that psychologist that told people that this is the way things go. And then they get prizes and they get money and they get notoriety and things like that. So they have to find out what everybody already knows to tell them what their new thing that they're going to get. After they figure that out, they're going to form a hypothesis, which is an educated guess. And when I was your age and I saw the word guess in there, I'm like, man, this hypothesis thing's easy. I could guess. But they put that stupid word in there, educated. And that comes from all this looking for evidence and looking to experiments and case studies to form a hypothesis. So you've got to do a lot of research to come up with a good hypothesis. Now, ideally, we want to prove our hypothesis correct. But if we don't prove the hypothesis correct, it's okay. Like, that's not a bad thing either, because then it tells us, whoa, we're wrong here. We're on a more correct track. Then they're going to test for accuracy through research. Maybe your hypothesis is an if-then statement, not then. It's a well thought out, not just a random guess. You don't just throw something out there. You really think it out through a lot of research and everything. After that, you're going to test your hypothesis, and that's the cool part. You actually do the experiment, whether you're hooking people up to electricity to see what will happen to them. An experiment could take days. It could take minutes. It could take weeks. It could take days. It could take years to do. Like, let's say we're researching how the effect of public schools on children. Well, if we start in kindergarten and we study the same group all the way through till they graduate high school, man, that's 13 years. And that's a long time. So after you conduct your experiment, you're going to analyze your results. You're going to get a ton of data. What does this mean? What does all this data mean? You're going to look at the data and make decisions of what the data means, and you're going to compare it to other things. You're going to look for patterns and relationships, things like that. And then after you look at all the data, you're going to draw a conclusion. Was your hypothesis true? If so, hey, that's awesome. And you're going to, but you have evidence to prove it true. Oh no, the evidence says that I was wrong. That's awesome, because guess what? That makes you go back and do more research. When you do research, you can create theory. You can prove other theories are correct. You can change theories. Not saying you do. You don't go, oh, hey, look what I did. I changed your theory, Jimmy. Your input may strengthen a theory or something else. It also can create more research. Like, whoa, look what we found. Now we have other research to do, and this is strange, right? Imagine if I gave you an experiment and said, hey, I want you to do an experiment. I want you to change the world with this. And you guys go out and you do an experiment and you find out, and you're like, you have this question, you have a hypothesis, you prove it correct. And you're like, holy cow, we proved this correct. And it creates more research for you. And it would kind of freak you guys out, like, oh yeah, go do more research. And you're like, whoa, Mr. Anderson, I did what you want me to do. But that's what a researcher would do. Like they're excited about this stuff. They're excited about doing more research and getting to go in there and find out new information. Okay. And it's a little different than a high school student. Like, oh, hey, this assignment you gave me, Mr. Anderson, caused me to go do more work. And I'm excited about that. Well, that's what a researcher in psychology would do. Okay. Now, those two extra steps in research, post means after research, further steps. First of all, you conduct a psychological experiment. You need somebody to replicate your psychological experiment. Now, you do your experiment. You want to be the big time researcher and get all the notoriety. So does everybody else. And guess what? Nobody wants to do. Be the guy that goes and repeats people's studies. All right. So sometimes studies don't get repeated. All right. And so maybe because if you repeat a study, you don't find the same results, it kind of deteriorates and makes that first study like, are we sure that's right? If you do find the same results, it's like, whoa, that's even closer to being true. And it confirms the findings and makes that study stronger. Okay. And then, and the other thing too, like that's one of the problems in research is people aren't replicating experiments. Number one, they cost a lot of money. Number two, like I said, nobody wants to be the repeater, the replicator. Everybody wants to be the big time person that comes up with something cool. And that's one of the problems in research. You hear people say research says this and let's go find this out. Well, part of the problem with research is it's not always correct. And that's kind of bad. Like these guys want to be big time. Sometimes they falsify their data. Not often, but sometimes. Sometimes they have a bias. They so bad want to prove their hypothesis correct. And when they read that data, they have this bias to say, hey, look, I can prove that I'm right by looking at the data in this way instead of this other way. And so sometimes, and there's actually groups of people that do go out and repeat these things, and they're finding that some of them, they're not getting the same findings. So you got to be careful when you believe research. I don't want to say don't believe research because, I mean, we hear this all the time, science, they don't know anything and stuff. Well, sometimes that's true, okay? Most of the time it's not. But sometimes some of these researchers, there are some out there that have falsified some of the findings that they've had. And some of them have unintentionally falsified it. So it's kind of a big struggle in science. Then there's new questions like, holy cow, there's new research questions that we found out this. Now it opens up a whole Pandora's box of new information to go find. And so you expand your question and stuff like that. Okay. All right. So this is section 1. I think I'm going to probably give you one of these every day. So we're going to kind of fly through this. In fact, I didn't even talk. Those of you guys who are in class, I may not talk in class as much because one of the things we got to do is watch the Milgram experiment. But anyway, just got done with a week or an entire day of watching the Chiefs beat the Jets and then watch the 3:00 games. Had our conference swimming meet yesterday. You'll be seeing this on Monday. And we got second place, but my guys swam really well. Volleyball team and going to state, that's awesome. Soccer team, it was cross country. Cross country's soccer team's playing something Monday. I don't even district championship. Awesome. We got cross country. The boys made it to state. The girls got a bunch of people going to state there. Golf did really well. Like they had really, really low numbers, which you're supposed to have that in golf. But anyway, so kind of winding down the fall season, and tomorrow starts the winter season. I start basketball practice tomorrow, so I'm the freshman basketball coach. So anyway, guys, you're the best psychology class that I've had in the month of November, just so you know that. So have a good one.